outreach for Intel in the Programmable Solutions group. He got his bachelor's degree from CSU Northridge, master's degree in electrical and electronics engineering from Loyola Marymount, and he's an adjunct professor. He has been in the past for Santa Clara University, currently for CSU Sacramento, while also working at Intel as a senior manager. So we're very lucky to have him. He's also on the ECE Industrial Advisory Committee, so he's very helpful to our department, and we're very excited to have him talk to us today. So thank you very much, Larry, for coming. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Prof. Stillmaker. Appreciate that. So I'm Larry, and let me, I'm going to give a link. I'm just going to start with this link because I'm actually recruiting right now. So you can take a look at the program that I'm very much involved with, and I'll drop this in the chat. And you can take a look at that. That's a program that I've been actively recruiting for a number of, this is like my 7th year recruiting for this program. So take a look at that. If you're interested in that, feel free to apply. And then let me go through a presentation that I'd like to share with you guys. Let's see, I got to get the share screen. Showing up, right?
I don't see it.
Not seeing it. Oh, maybe there's nothing. Oh, so I'm not sharing? Huh. All right, let me try that again. Screen 1, share.
There we go.
That'll probably do it. Yeah, okay, so now you're seeing a presentation, right?
Yep.
Great, okay. So if you have questions along the way, you can unmute, or if you're shy and don't want to ask the question out loud, I'm going to keep the chat open. And you can ask me a question via chat along the way. So I'm hoping this is interactive. The background on this presentation is, if you click on the link I put there, which is that we call ourselves the Programmable Solutions Group. Basically, we make FPGAs, and I know you guys are using FPGAs in some of your coursework. And our division of Intel is about 4,000 people. And every year we generally hire somewhere between 10, and I think we're looking for like 40 or 50 this year. So we're really doing a lot of hiring this year for this rotation program, which is you go through 18 months of different roles within this division of Intel, and then we place you in a full-time role. And that full-time role could be design, it could be a support type of role where you're what we call application engineers, where you're helping our customers design with FPGAs. It could be marketing, promoting FPGAs, or it could be selling them. And so those are kind of the 4 major areas that we hire electrical engineers and sometimes CS majors as well into the company. And I've done a lot of interviews. Right now it's peak hiring season. I probably do an interview, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 a week this time of year. I probably average about 50 to 75 student interviews every year, and I've been doing this for 6 or 7 years. And my colleague and I put together kind of what we're looking for, and try to help you guys understand what's going on in my head and other recruiters' heads. And this is information, some of it specific to Intel, but I would say more generally just trying to find jobs in tech companies. So with that, let me talk about myself. So again, I've been at Intel, or a company we used to be called Altera, since 2004, and I joined the industry in 1985. So that makes me an old fart. And I'm still at it. I love this, being in electrical engineering. For me, it's been a great profession, great career. I started down in LA area, worked for some companies down there, and then been at at this Intel division for quite a long time. So you might have heard of CSUN. It's one of the CSU campuses down in LA area and San Fernando Valley, and Loyola Marymount is a smaller private university in LA area. And then I've always really been interested in teaching as an adjunct. I did a course for UC Berkeley about, that's going on 20 years. And then more recently at Santa Clara University in Silicon Valley, taught a digital logic class. And at Sac State, I'm teaching a graduate level logic, like an advanced logic class, and some pictures of hobbies, things that I like to do, outdoorsy California type of stuff. And our mission of our education program is to basically get more students knowing about FPGAs. So either we can hire you or our customers can hire you, and at some point in your career, you'll be promoting FPGAs, saying, hey, we should use an FPGA in this project. And I work with Intel at university level, and it was really fun, and I love working with their products, and eventually, we'll find revenue from the companies that you guys join. So that's kind of why we exist. Why you should know about FPGAs. So they're used everywhere in electronics. They're used for prototyping just about every digital electronics project. It doesn't mean, like, even if you're building an iPhone, it's highly likely that Apple is prototyping with FPGAs, trying out new features, but eventually it goes into a custom chip, which we call an ASIC. But everybody uses them. And then in certain applications, they stay in FPGAs, and especially for like new markets. Good example is the 5G mobile network. You're probably seeing this on your phone now. You look on your phone and it used to say maybe LTE or 4G, and now it says 5G. So 5G is a faster network with all sorts of cool features, and they're rapidly changing. And so 5G networks and all of the base stations generally use FPGAs because the algorithms change often, and we can change the hardware on the fly. And then maybe in 3, 4, 5 years, companies like Ericsson and Nokia and Samsung and all the companies that are selling base stations will change them out to a lower cost custom chip. But right now it's still in the rapid evolution phase, so they use FPGAs. Okay. And to know about jobs with us, just look at jobs.intel.com, and I got a little bit more specific. And if you see in the chat, this ESG rotation program, again, that's what we're hiring for. I'm hoping at the end of this presentation, someone might want to share a resume that we could share with the group, and I could critique it and just kind of go through, how it matches up to some of the recommendations I have in resume writing. So let's start with what I'm going to talk about is applying for jobs, resume writing, career fairs, face-to-face interviews or remote interviews, and follow-up. It's kind of the different phases of your overall job search. And I gave you a link. You can go put your resume in. If you have the right keywords in your resume, like for us, it's, Verilog, Python, Intel, Quartus, these sort of things. It's going to go through some algorithm and find your resume. And, if you're lucky, you'll get callback, but we get lots of resumes, more than we can possibly service all of them. So then you get to your career fairs. It gives you kind of a higher chance that you'll get attention of someone. And now we do, virtual career fairs. I personally like face-to-face ones, even though they're kind of hectic. I just find we learn more about you when we, talk face-to-face. And then you've got your different groups, whether it's IEEE or Beta Pi, or you get into the communities of, SHIP and NSBE and SWE and so on and so forth. So we go to all of these conferences, and And I would say your odds are a little bit better if you attend those conferences than your school career fairs, but they're kind of equivalent. And then kind of like the best is to get in good with your profs. So, get in with Professor Stillmaker, and if he loves the work that you're doing, maybe you're a TA and you're really active as a TA, or you just did a great job, or maybe he's working with you on a capstone, something like that. He's going to know way more about you than I can figure out in anywhere between 10 and 30 minutes. And so, frankly, I don't spend that much time currently with career fairs because I know a lot of profs around kind of all over the US, because I've been doing this for a while, and I just ask for recommendations. So just, that, get in good with your profs and ask them if they know of anyone that's hiring, and they might be able to help you out and forward on your resume. Because I guarantee if I get a recommendation from a prof, I call every student back. I will call anyone that's a professor recommendation gets a call back from me, and usually very quickly, because it usually means you're doing really well in electronics and FPGA class. Let's talk about resumes. So often we'll go and we'll collect resumes at a career fair, and there might be 6 of us behind a table. People are dropping off resumes. I'm only talking to, a fraction of everyone that comes by. And then once the career fair is over, we'll sit in a room and start organizing resumes. And we kind of looked at some statistics on how long we look at a resume for each person before we move on to the next one. Does anyone have a guess of how long we spend looking at a resume to see if we want to move to the next step? Just anyone take a guess. Put it in the chat if you want.
10 seconds.
Actually, even less, only 5 to 6 seconds. Okay, so not much time, which means you really need to catch our attention quickly with the right buzzwords. So what do we want to see? Who you are, how to reach you, what you want to do, and some key accomplishments or key skills. And you need to catch that, high up on the top of the resume. And so what I've kind of phrased this as, Manhattan real estate. If you go, look up Zillow or something like that on how much it is for a condo in Manhattan on Park Avenue, and it's very expensive real estate. So in a resume, that top third is really like the place that you want to make sure that in those 5 to 6 seconds, I'm going to see what I need to see to make a decision so that you can move to the next phase. And maybe you have some great stuff going on, but it's at the bottom, but I've already put it in the do not respond pile. So make sure that stuff's at the top. And kind of the things that we definitely want to see at the top is your name, your contact information. I really like LinkedIn and GitHub, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then especially as a student, what school, what degree, when you're graduating, are you seeking full-time or intern? People talk about, what to put at the very, you don't need a whole abstract. Just this is exactly Fresno State, BSEE, May 2022 graduate. That would be perfect for me. So now I've in about 2 to 3 seconds, I know your name. Again, address, not that important, but definitely how to contact you, what you're looking for. And then you want to start getting into, I want to be able to see something like Verilog, Python, Quartus, keywords that are interesting for hiring with us. I want to see those in like the first 10 lines so that you can get into that. All right, let's go explore this resume more now that you've caught my attention. LinkedIn, it's great. I really like LinkedIn. It's a great site for keeping things professional. I like it that the community of users hasn't really abused it, like Facebook, and lots of social media. Frankly, there's just a bunch of junk. Often there's conspiracy theories and falsehoods, and fine, go off and spread that. But LinkedIn is like universally respected as a professional profile site. And I don't find all that stuff, which is great. I'd also, just as you're job hunting, just as a recommendation, like be respectful of Facebook too, because a recruiter, especially if you get into the later phases of your recruiting process, if you just have pictures of you being a party animal, all plastered on Facebook, it might be that a recruiter goes, okay, well, this person looks pretty good in the professional side, but they might be irresponsible because they have, dozens of pictures of them partying and drinking. And that's another side that, frankly, someone recruiting or human resources might find as a negative. So, Facebook is a social site, but it is, if you're viewable, it's fair games for anyone that can see. So just keep that in mind. And then you can use LinkedIn as like an overflow, because I really like one-page resumes. So if you have more projects or interests in things, LinkedIn can be like your expanded resume. And then GitHub, I love for open source projects. And even if you don't put source codes, because I know a lot of profs don't want answers to projects or labs and stuff, so that it ends up permeating throughout the school and everyone has the solutions. I get it, but you can always blog about it on GitHub, right? GitHub, you can do some pretty amazing work with Markdown or other Java-based pages, and just talk about projects and what you've done. Describe what you did, maybe create a video or a blog or things like that. Whenever I see a GitHub site on someone I am trying to recruit, I'll always click on it and see what's in there. And don't be surprised if I start asking questions about the project to make sure you actually understand what's going on in your code. Then I'll kind of know, is it your original work or not? Okay, so that's it on LinkedIn or GitHub. Other things about your resume. So don't use acronyms in general unless you're MIT. You can get away with it, but everyone else, you don't really know where your resume might go. Often resumes in the Intel world are sent to our site in Costa Rica. And I doubt they would know what CSUN is, even though it's a large campus in LA area. If you just said you go to CSUN, it's not as helpful as like spelling it out. So I don't know if more people I guess you generally call yourselves Fresno State, or is it CSU Fresno? I'm not sure. It's kind of the same thing with Sacramento State, but I find sort of just spell out the name. You really don't need to put high school unless you went to like a special tech high school, or you're valedictorian or something really special in high school. General, I find you can leave it out. Reverse chronological, which is, I think you probably hear this in resume workshops all the time. So latest stuff, followed by things that you've done further back in your life. If any of you have the 10-point system, like Indian universities are common for that. And we see a lot of students that do undergrad in India and then come to the States for grad school. I would use like the equivalent 4-point just for someone that isn't versed. What you generally find in the 10-point system is the highest grade you can get is 8. And then it looks like, well, you're dividing 8 by 10. Oh, that looks like, just barely a B, but that's not really the case. So put the equivalent. And then your degree name. This is very inconsistent, even in the, even across just the Cal State system. Sac State might call it one thing, Fresno State might call it, some of them call it CompE, some might call it, who knows, but it's, CE might mean chemical engineering or civil engineering, depending on what the recruiter is. So spell out your degree name, coursework, show the stuff that you want to catch people's attention, and put your GPA unless it's below 3.0. I will always ask if I'm interviewing what your GPA is. So, the other thing I find is if your GPA is better in your major than maybe you did in the general ed stuff, you could always put 3.2 in major, something like that. That's fine as well. About describing things that you've done, there's a lot of acronyms that are part of tech, right? It's all over the place. And when you joined Fresno State, you probably knew a few, and now that you're further along, you have more, acronyms, whatever they might be, about, coding languages or hard work things, just spell the ones out unless you really know everybody knows the acronym, right? Like, VHDL, if you guys are coding in VHDL, if you guys are electrical engineers, right? You don't need to spell that out because it's like, pretty much anyone in electronics will see that and know. But other ones you might want to. And if you're not sure if to spell it out, ask someone that's more senior in the tech world, which ones you want to spell out. Projects, this is kind of the we versus I that shows up both in cover letters and resumes, or when you speak to someone. Be really specific on what you did versus we. Especially when I'm asking questions about a project, if you say we all the time, I will drill down and ask you specifically what you did, because I know what happens in group projects. That's not like, if you got 4 people, it's very infrequent that it's 25% effort per person. Someone is, definitely wants that A, and so they'll do whatever it takes, even if that means covering for someone that isn't pulling the weight as someone else. So I'm trying to find that person that's striving for the A, and I will ask questions in such a way. But not all recruiters will do that, and it's a red flag when everything is we. It sort of makes like maybe you're covering because you were the one running out to Starbucks and just keeping everyone caffeinated while they're writing all the code. So we're looking for things like that. And then in terms of project skills, right, you get exposure to a lot of different languages. List in terms of order of proficiency. So if you're best at Python first, then Verilog, then Java, so on, list it that way. I've seen some people use little dials and meters in terms of how you rank your own proficiency. Those are kind of nice, not mandatory, but that's a style of resume that I'm seeing more and more recently. Okay. Things to leave off. So one of the challenges in writing a good resume is to use the space carefully. And so some of the things that you've probably been using since, elementary school, like my kids were really good at PowerPoint by the time they were about 7 or 8. So I kind of just consider skills in the Microsoft Office type of stuff to be like, you should just know that, right? Like you've probably done that. But if you're really good at something in that realm, like you're good at writing macros, virtual basic macros for Excel, yeah, absolutely put that in there. But if you're looking to free up a little bit of space in your resume, you can leave that off and it won't, I don't think it will help you. Probably don't need to know what editor you're using. I see that sometimes on resumes, and I'll see this really tightly packed or 2-page resume. And it was like, okay, you told me that you used Notepad. Not a game changer, probably just consuming space, probably be better to leave it off. So I have this problem, often I'll need a resume for my own resume as a bio or something like that. And, I've been around the industry for a while, so I'm also trying to keep it at 1 page. So I'm also thinking about, okay, what do people really need to know and leave off? But even, with the number of experiences you have, should definitely be 1 page. These things are okay, but I wouldn't want to see these and then like have really tiny font and it's all packed in. I was like, okay, that's like, you didn't need to share that because I'm just expecting it. Other things though, I really do like multilingual. So definitely if you're proficient in multiple languages, absolutely want to know that. You know, and you'd be surprised what languages might help you. Like, you know, I would imagine some of you on the call today are Spanish speakers, and we happen to have a huge site in Guadalajara that has a few thousand people. I usually try to visit them every year or two. And if you're a bilingual engineer, it might be that you're in a role that's working very closely with some of our colleagues in Guadalajara. So that could be a game changer. Tech is done all over the planet, and I work with people that speak, you know, all sorts of different languages and stuff. So every language, even if you think it's, you know, one that might not be, you know, people think, all right, well, like Mandarin and Chinese, because there's a lot of tech going on, but Hindi, you know, could be a game changer. Any of the, you know, French, German, you know, European languages, definitely list those. Soft skills. So people, you know, or people skills, you know, some people don't like to use the word soft, but if you have a skill that you claim in there, try to provide an example. It's kind of true of almost any skill. If you can back it up with examples, it's better. And I just put, you know, maybe something that you did, I don't know, at an internship or something like that, and you noticed that they were using a repo of FTP and you convinced them to use GitHub, something like that, you know, just back it up with concrete tasks. Next thing is on clubs, awards, hobbies. We love to see these on resumes, especially if you're active. And, you know, if you have awards, you know, definitely state the ones that are relevant, but other ones that are hard to do, like, you know, I put in, you know, came in first in a marathon or even ran a marathon, right? That might be interesting. That might say, you know, your discipline, have perseverance in, you know, athletics or something like that. I really like to see hobbies too. So I showed you my hobbies in my my, you know, intro slide. I showed skiing and windsurfing and guitar. So if you happen to list one of those three as your hobbies, we'll have an instant bond. I'll probably ask about it. Oh, cool. You like to ski. Where do you go skiing? And, you know, I would say now we're kind of getting out of COVID, but in general, be active with these clubs on your university. They're going to bring you important networking. You're going to learn about, you know, hopefully you get some involvement with industry. And it's really important to, you know, try to build a community of people that you know and trust that are striving for, you know, excellence in your field. So I can't strive that enough. It's even more important as you get to be, you know, someone like my age. I would guess if I was job hunting again, I would just look at my network. I would just go out and probably go at LinkedIn and go, okay, who's working at what company that I might want to work at, find them on LinkedIn, and then just call them up and say, hey, I'm job hunting. You guys have any jobs over there? Can you get me in the right place? So definitely just, you know, try to be an active networker throughout your career. It'll really help you out. Finally, you know, just things like spell check. I recommend that you go and just get a group of your peers and just exchange. Maybe, I don't know how many people are on the call today, just a small group of you, but go and exchange resumes with each other and ask everyone to find typos and proofread and stuff. I think that's a good way to do it. Have your, you know, anyone that you trust that knows about tech, have them take a look at your resume and give you recommendations. And of course, your career office and things like that. Don't send us resumes with typos, really. Like that, just that's a big no-no for me. It's really frustrating when I see a great resume and there's typos in there, because they're, with all the tools and spell checking and peer review, it kind of, to me, it's a little bit like you're not detailed oriented, and engineering is a very detailed oriented profession. when you get to career fairs and you're handing out resumes, I like to just see white paper, normal thickness is fine, not too, cute with font, and not too small, because a lot of the recruiters are older folks like me, and we might not be able to see the really small font. So try to keep it quite readable, make the margins wider, but don't shrink the font to fit everything. And again, we like to see one page. And then this one's also really important. Name the resume with your full name, no spaces, just like that, first, last, resume.pdf. Because if that shows up in my email inbox, and I'm, let's say, doing a search, and we met a few months back and I want to find you, I want to be able to find it pretty easily. Put underscore, put spaces in the name of the PDF file, because some systems just don't deal well with spaces. So just to make sure, this is a very safe bet on how to name your resume if you're attaching it. Cover letters, I don't get to read much, but if you do, often what happens is they'll go to our human resources and then I'll just get a resume. But if you do, don't just regurgitate what's on your resume. Just try to tell how the company will benefit if you are hired, right? Don't say I'm looking for experience like that. Everybody that's graduating out of college is looking for experience, and that doesn't necessarily benefit Intel or whatever company you're recruiting for. Say, should I be hired? What you're going to find is I am, I'm curious, and I've been passionate about electrical engineering since I was 12 years old, and I designed a robot and just realized this is what I want to do for a living. And here I am, near graduation. I'm really passionate about it. And here's, a key project that I've done that I think you'd be impressed with. And I can take these skills into industry and help Intel be successful. Something like that is better than I'm trying to gain experience and I want to learn. So, try to think about it from a recruiter's point of view. I want to hire people that you can do all the work that, I can do. So that way I can just kick back and you do all the work for me, right? That's how managers think. Okay, if you're not getting selected, tune your resume, right? And resubmit it. It's okay to tune your resume and even tune it for the job and resubmit it. Intel doesn't have a problem if you've submitted your resume a couple times for the same job. They get it. I don't know how other companies think, but we don't see that as a problem. And then just try that, and then really look very carefully at, take the clues from the job requisition. So let me click on the one here that I showed. Okay, so look at the job requisition carefully and try to find FPGAs, digital logic, look at kind of keywords on qualifications and try to work that into your resume. This is super careful. And if you're finding different qualifications on each company, tune your resume. Just have a Cisco version, an Intel version, and so on and so forth. That might help you out get found through these systems, right, that go off and look for particular keywords. Obviously, I kind of poo-pooed Office stuff, but if you see that in the in the job qualifications and these, then make sure that they show up in the resume, hopefully high up in that Manhattan zone, or if we're using a scanning algorithm, at least somewhere in the resume. Okay. And then, do the networking, right? And again, as I mentioned, if you're not getting selected, talk to your profs. If you're doing good work and the prof likes you and it can vouch for you, can be great advocates. Okay. Also, if you're getting to the point where you're getting interviews and you're not mock interviews, your Career Center probably has mock interviews. You could try a mock interview with a friend, or maybe there's someone you know that's in tech, and just say, hey, I got a favor to ask. Can you interview me? You know, can you find 20 to 30 minutes and give me some honest consulting and coaching on how to do a better one? And then talk about thank yous. You know, I can send you guys a copy of this just to have around, but you know, these are pretty typical on most resume checklist and all. We go into a little bit on career fairs. So I don't know the schedule of career fairs at Fresno State. So it's like Davis has a really one, and other ones might be this size, super crowded. I don't know. Things are probably still a bit virtual. Maybe next year they'll look like that. For there, you know, go to the companies that you're really interested in and kind of have a plan when you go to the career fairs, and sort of visit the booths in order of the companies you're most interested, and then even have a list of the jobs. If you showed up to Intel and had a list and go, oh boy, I saw job requisition 672 for the PSG rotation program. I was just checking in because that seems like my dream job. You would impress the people that you show up and talk to at the recruiting desk. Okay. And there's lots of pre-interview worksheets. The other thing that I find is really important at career fairs, I think I've got a note on this, is just listen really, really carefully. So you'll get there, you'll have a few minutes to speak at the, you know, the desk, right? You know, be really careful listener, more than going in and doing a, you know, a planned, what they call an elevator pitch, like what you could do in you know, what, maybe 10 or 15 seconds on the elevator. So too many people just come in with a prepared speech with all this techie stuff, and then I'm watching it and I'm looking, going, well, the recruiters from human resources, and they don't know anything about any of the languages and things you're talking about. So you really want to know who you're speaking with before you go on to a, you know, any sort of prepared speech. Okay. When to go? Right now is peak season, so we're in fall. So the leaves are starting to look like this. We do about half of our hiring in the fall, so this is a really active season. Some of it will bleed over into January, February. For our summer hire program, we're more or less done around February. We know who we want to join our company in June. So if you are a graduating senior, you really should be hitting this hard. Okay. A little more about interviewing. So again, just I can't emphasize enough, be a really good listener. Listen to the questions very carefully and make sure that you don't go off on a tangent. Really try to answer the question that's being asked of you. So I know you try to prepare, and there's things that you know, and you want to get that out there, but fit it in to the conversation where it fits naturally, and listen to the questions. So when you interview with me, I'm kind of the technical screener. So I'm going to ask very specific questions about logic design. It might be, you know, what's the difference between a mealy and a Moore state machine, and when you might want to use one versus the other, or, you know, why is the Verilog language needed versus C? Why wouldn't we use C to design digital electronics? I like these sort of questions that are a bit open-ended, and you know, I'm looking for people that understand what's being asked and come up with a thoughtful, curious answer. And if you don't know the answer, You can always say, unfortunately, I don't know that, but I'm very interested in why that's really important to you. I'd like to learn more. That can at least make it a positive experience for yourself, saying, I'm a curious person, right? Because there's always going to be questions that you won't know the answer to. But if you're curious about the answer, that always reflects well. Okay. And again, I really like follow-up emails after the interview. Let's see, a couple other things. A lot of the interviews now are, video interviews. And I really enjoy when people dress, reasonably nice for the video interview. Dress up like you were going to be face to face, right? We're all kind of stuck in the situation where there's a lot of remote stuff, but wear a collar if you're a man, or a nice dress as a woman. Even if you're going to be in front of the camera, it always reflects very positive about your professionalism. And then if you are traveling, sometimes you'll get a stipend. Be frugal. Don't pick last minute flights or the most expensive hotels. Even if it's within the budget, try to think about it like it's your own money, and don't be late, right? You're going up to Silicon Valley for interviews. Traffic is getting worse and worse. So I would check Google, look at the patterns, look at one of those things that shows traffic at various times of the day to make sure that you're not late. Always bring hard copies and such. And then just kind of things to put on your desktop if you're going to do a video interview, right? Resume, what job you're reviewing for, some notes that you might want to have. And this one's really important, list of questions to ask, right? These follow-up questions. A great one is, what attributes have other people had that have really excelled when they hired into your particular role? In this case, we're hiring for our FPGA rotation program. If you asked that sort of question, that is a really thoughtful question. It makes you think whether you got the job or not. You'd understand what attributes the high performers have, and then you could strive for those. Let's see. Sometimes I'll ask a fairly hard question. I've been more and more with the remote interviews. Usually I'd have you go up to the whiteboard, but I just say, hey, you got a paper and pencil? And I'll ask for something like a waveform. It might be like build a divide by 2 counter with digital logic circuits, right? And that can be done with a D flip-flop and an inverter. But often what I'll ask first is, show me the waveforms of a 100 megahertz clock and a 50 megahertz clock that are aligned with a rising edge, right? And that's something that I would expect you should be fairly comfortable with that, and then just hold up a picture of your thing. So I like to ask questions like that. So, be prepared. A lot of interviews might do things like that, right? We like to ask, get kind of down and dirty into the technology and make sure that you're not just a good talker, but you really understand how to design electronics. And then again, if you don't know the answer, or maybe, you're on the way, but you kind of know you don't quite get it, it's okay to say, hey, I think I get it, but it's been a few years since I've dealt with this. Am I on the right track? Often the interviewers will sort of steer you in the right direction. And if you're intuitive and go, oh, yeah, now I see what you're talking about, and you get the answer right, that's actually bodes really well with me. And it means you're a fast learner, which is what we're looking for. Okay. And if you learn something new, of course, thank them in the interview and also in a follow-up letter. Here's some of my favorite questions. Notice there's some that aren't techy. Like I like to ask, how does Intel make money? That means you've done some homework and looked at our webpage, see what products we make and what we do there. So let's see, Fernando asked about follow-up emails. I actually have a good one here. I'll show you in just a second. But these are, questions that you might be asked by me, and I'm kind of the tech screener. So I'm sort of these first three bullets are going to almost be like questions that your prof's going to, either ask you, maybe through quizzing and testing and things like that. That's kind of where I go when they look for my feedback. Other sort of, how you dealt with stress or how you deal with people interactions, other people might try out more. It's just at Intel, we generally do these in 30-minute chunks, and that's barely enough time for me to figure out how much you know technically. No questions, no interest. This happens all the time. I really feel sorry for students sometimes that interview quite well, but you ask them a question, any follow-up questions, and maybe they're just so relieved because it's like, oh, good, the interview's finally over. I can relax again. Write out a list of questions. There's plenty of places you can Google and find good follow-up questions. So here's some of them. These are kind of like, these are sort of questions that show that you're really interested in the job and how you can excel at the job. And other things are sort of to, I would say, get to the ego of the interviewer, which isn't bad, right? So, we all have an ego. If you ask me, like, what was the greatest accomplishment in, your profession thus far, and you ask me that, I'd probably go, oh, wow, that's cool. And I'd probably have a big grin and tell you a story about something that I thought that, just was great. And then you end up making me feel good about myself, which in turn makes me feel good about you as a candidate. So those are good as well. Just keep in mind, usually question section of a interview is probably 5 minutes. So you got to be a little bit, selective on which ones you think are most appropriate for the situation. Okay, so this was to answer Fernando. So after the interview, what I find is, and I don't really have it in the bullet here, but almost like get the recruiter's email address. You probably find it in the invite. Open up, Outlook or whatever, and literally like start the thank you letter. Thank you for interviewing me. I was fascinated by your company, and I was challenged by you had good questions. I felt like I fit in well with most of the questions. I wish I would have known more about this, but you actually helped me understand about something that I kind of had cursory knowledge, but thanks for enlightening me. Again, if there's something that was maybe humorous or some conversation that was unique, that could kind of make it where it would be more memorable. But draft the email or just have it ready so that you can literally send it 15 minutes after the interview. Don't wait a day or two. Do it right away. And this is actually really rare, how many people don't send a follow-up email. It's quite easy, right? It really is helpful. And kind of making it personal. The reason there's this picture of a superhero water cup is my colleague, Bill, carries this thing around the office wherever he goes. And the student being interviewed asked him what his favorite superhero character was, and he had replied, Aquaman. And so a day or two after the interview, he received a handwritten letter from Audrey, right? Thanks for taking the time to speak with me on Friday. It was nice to meet you, hear about the program. P.S. I couldn't find any non-birthday Aquaman card, so I made one. And so she kind of used the little Aquaman logo, and it was cute, and it was very memorable. And this thing's been sitting on his desk for like 10 years still, because he just thought it was very creative. I don't know if Audrey got the job. She might be working for Hallmark now. But that was a really good follow-up that was quite memorable. So if you can sort of make it enjoyable for the person reading it, that definitely would be a good thing. So to kind of wrap up, I put this as the first bullet, especially in my sort of role where I'm working with professors. But if you know a prof, the profs probably have some connection in their profession to industry people. I would definitely work on getting that sort of rapport with profs. Go to their office hours, whether you have questions or not. Maybe just to get to know them better. Most people are in this profession and faculty because they love working with students, and we want to see you succeed. So don't just show up to class and not get to know your profs. Get to the point where if you think you're doing good work, ask them for a recommendation, ask them where to go and job hunt. I think that's that's how I find most of my candidates that I bring into this program nowadays. Single page resume, focused on your career fair, right? Prioritize and look at their webpage before you go. Be a really active listener on your interviews, right? Don't just go in with an elevator pitch, right? Listen carefully, think about the question. If it's someplace, you might even, if they're asking a few questions in a row, maybe make a few notes and think about it for a second. A little bit of awkward silence is not a bad thing. Don't always have to try to answer immediately after. If there's a little bit of an awkward pause, that might be okay. If I see that with a student, I'm actually kind of like it, because it means you're a thinker. And that doesn't bother me at all. If it's like a hard technical question, you can always say, if you don't want it to be too awkward, and go, okay, just a minute, I'm recalling, let me think about this for 1 sec, and then start answering. Don't, sometimes you need that bit of time to process. It's okay. And then follow up again, follow up quickly. Email is usually the most common way. You can mail things, but email's quick. That way it's fresh on the mind of the interviewer. That's, if it shows up a few days later and I've already interviewed 10 people after I spoke to you, I'm like, who was that again? So that really helps. So that is the end of the presentation. If anyone wants to share a resume, I'm happy to go through it and critique it in this group setting, or just answer any questions I can about Intel or job hunting or Fpgas, whatever you guys want.
I have a resume I'd like to critique.
Okay, so let me stop sharing and I'll take a look. Okay, so go ahead and.
Okay, right here. It's you can't really see the whole thing. Do you want me to zoom out or just scroll down?
Let's see. Let me, I got 2 screens, so if I look like I'm looking away, it's because I'm on my second screen. That's a little bit larger now. That's quite good.
Do you want me to zoom out so it fits in one page?
Yeah, you could click out few. So that's pretty good. Don't make it any smaller, or you'll see me squinting.
Is that okay?
Actually, one click larger. Perfect. Okay.
Okay.
So long win. Wow, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so you already you did perfect on the, and maybe it was already like this, but that's awesome. Your name, what you're looking for, really high up. So then the next thing I would be looking for, if I saw this and it's like, okay, internship, what I'm interested in would be, are you a rising, so you're looking for internships, which are generally in the summer. And then the next thing is, all right, you started on August 19, so I'm starting to do some math. If there's some way to relay, all right, so that means right now, so you did 19, 20, 21. So that makes you are you a junior?
Yes, I am.
And you'd be a rising senior.
Yes.
Right. So maybe get something in there to say you're seeking rising senior, searching for summer, because rising senior is the highest probability of getting the internship. So if you're a rising sophomore, you're like, you haven't done that much, right? But then if you're a rising junior, it's a little better. And if you're a rising senior, that's the highest probability because you have the most skills that you've picked up. So that would be one maybe recommendation there. Love the GitHub, love the LinkedIn. I also like the, it's not CSUF. I can see exactly that it's Fresno. You've got a killer GPA. I'm almost wondering where you lost 0.02. You must have aced every class but one. It's awesome. And if I was interviewing, I'd probably ask, just because I'm a smart ass, that, I'd probably ask you where you lost 0.02. And the coursework is great. This totally lines up with an FPGA type of role. RTO Verilog, maybe if you did Python, we're always looking for Python. So that might be something, if you know Python, sneak it in, because everyone uses Python now. It's like the most popular software language. It's great for scripting and all that sort of things. But, that's all good. I see it here. So you kind of got it down a little bit lower. That's probably fine. This is all good stuff. Actually glad that you put LaTeX in here. I actually hate the language, but I know it's used a lot. I just kind of find it unusual. That you have to
my resume is written in LaTeX.
Yeah, it's beautiful, by the way. It's really nice. So I'm glad that you know LaTeX well. Whenever I mess with it, it's like, oh God, can I just I was like Word. That's just my thing. But we use LaTeX a bunch. In what we do, and I know it's in education. It also probably means that I'm assuming you did some TA work, maybe, because
I haven't. Well, not necessarily TA work, but I have worked with professors. It's
okay.
Yeah.
That's how you learn LaTeX. So actually, that for me and what I know was kind of a key that you've been working with profs, which is a good thing. And then. In good order in terms of education, skills, experience. Maybe my only thing here is technical engineering intern, but you don't really show, is this with Cal State Fresno?
Yeah, I should put that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably put that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That would be a good one. I'm actually glad that you list their prof. Because in my role, I've talked to Professor L. Ruzek. So, when I see a name, and then often I'll do things like Google Scholar. I don't know if you guys know about, it's called Google Scholar, I think. And if I see a prof, I'll look up what publications they have and how much of them are FPGA based. So that's good. Robotics, CV, NLP. I don't know what those are. Those might be things that you want to spell out. They're a little bit unique. Right. And then algorithms of C++. Can you just make it a little larger? Stuff's give it a click in the Zoom now.
Better?
Yeah, thanks. String, Harvard. I love the Ford T-Bird taillight circuit. That's always a fun one. I'm teaching logic design. I wanted to squeeze that one into my labs. I opted for this one's my favorite now, which is, if you see this thing, it's like this. See these rotary encoders? I don't know. I'm sure Professor Stillmaker, he probably knows about that one. It's a really popular state machine type of labs, but I like the Ford T-Bird ones, or Mustang as well. It has kind of a neat light sequencer. Yeah, and then you got your hobby, you got your extracurricular and you got your hobbies. So it's a strong resume. It's quite good. Definitely you should definitely apply to our rotation program.
Are you accepting interns? I thought it was just
yeah. I'm sorry.
classes.
Yeah, you could also look for interns. That's true. Go to go to Intel and you'll probably find plenty of intern openings as well, and you can apply against that as well.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our group is doing a lot of intern hiring, and for any of you that's on this call, I will, if you can see my email, you can send me here. I'll put it in the chat. You can send me your resume, and I'll try to get it into the system. So I go by Larry, but email for work is Lawrence. So yeah, no, great, long, good looking resume. It's well written. Quite a nice job.
Okay, thank you.
Any other volunteers or questions? Be shy. Okay, well, I think there's another event that I'll speak with in a few weeks. I have a talk about, it's called Semiconductor Industry Overview. And it's kind of the dynamics of the industry. I'll talk about, you probably read about some of these supply chain shortages, and that's affecting the chip industry. So I kind of go through some of the background on that, and just kind of different type of jobs that you can find in this industry. And hopefully we'll see you at other events sponsored by Intel.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Larry. We really appreciated the talk. It was some excellent information. Thanks so much.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. I hope to get on campus, if not in the fall, maybe in the spring. And we'll finally get to meet face to face.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks for coming.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of the semester.
Thanks, Larry.
All right. Thanks all.